Welcome to Folio, an actual play podcast about solo and epistolary TTRPGs. I'm your host, Satah, and I'm showcasing multiple possible experiences of self-paced games by inviting guests to play them alongside me so I can compile our stories together. You can support the show financially at patreon.com/foliopod or with a one-off donation at ko-fi.com/foliopod. This is episode 2 of our games of Farsickness Landing, a one-page map-making game about rediscovering an ancient derelict ship by Lonely Cryptid Media. The other explorers of crash sites and history joining me today are Dora Rogers, whose work you can find at dcity.itch.io and galpalgames.itch.io, and Marc Majcher, whose work you can find at majcher.com and majcher.itch.io. Last week we set the scene for our discoveries and explored the first 2 rooms. Let's see what other history from 10,000 years ago we can dig up.
Let's see another room.
Room 3.
Area 3. Let me roll some d6s. I'm curious because there's 13 rooms and there's only 6 entries on each of these tables, so we're going to get a lot of repeats, but the combinations are going to be fun.
The type is technical.
This is technical.
Organic again.
The modifier is scientific.
Knowing.
The item is a relic.
Another weapon.
Communicator.
And the vibe is uplifting.
Dangerous.
And melancholy. Yeah, a little bit same vibes.
We're having a great time in this ancient ship. There's nothing to worry about.
And this is on the, what left is the port side of the ship. I think, I wonder if this is, maybe these are some of the cryo chambers that did open up. I wonder how we got out. We'll find out. Yeah, I'm curious what this is. Let me ask some questions and find out what this might be. What is missing, broken, or damaged? Yeah, I like the idea that, to go with the prompt here, not everyone make it down. I think these are damaged cryo chambers, and I think there are ancestors in them. And I think how many are there? There's a dozen or so in this area, and I think it is kind of damaged as well. I think because we have a little bit of power still, there are red error readouts, damage readouts that are active. And there's a dozen of them that maybe they're not crushed or broken on the outside or anything, but it's clear that the people in there have been dead for quite some time. But the nature of these stasis tubes has kind of kept them in a, not pristine, but a preserved condition, and kind of going through one by one, doing the checks on each one, like running whatever basic diagnostics there are available in the limited power situation we have here. It's clear that although that they haven't decayed or desiccated or anything, we do not have the capacity to bring them back. And yeah, melancholy fits there. What piece of history have I discovered? I think that the history discovered is exactly that, right? Now we know for sure that there were others that didn't make it. Maybe there was speculation or rumors about that, or maybe myths or history about maybe people who would return or who would join us after a long time. But now it's pretty clear that that is not the case. What other questions do I have here? I mean, who are they? I think they give names and ID numbers, but I don't know who they were as people or what they did. What might have happened if they did make it. There's just a lot to know, and maybe I can find out somewhere else on the ship. But right now, it's just a lot of questions about who these people were and who they might have been if they made it out.
What is dangerous here, and how will you overcome it? There's another weapon, and there's more organics. Yeah, you know what this is? This is sort of the agricultural area, right? So if you push on through the garden, the sort of aesthetic, spiritual, but also agricultural location, you come to this more densely packed, more industrial hydroponics facility, which is where the most practical crops were grown, where a lot of our food came from. I think I come in here, and once again, I know what this is. I'm pretty sure that this is a hydroponic farm of some kind, and there is another weapon here, and this is disturbing to me because it suggests conflict, right? 2 weapons and pretty close together. That does kind of tell a story, And that's pretty creepy to me. I think that this area is dangerous, not because of the weapon, which is also lifeless, but because of fauna, like modern fauna from this planet. There is, there's an animal. Gosh, I need to come up with a cool animal. This is what the fans like. I think it's a, I don't want to get like too bogged down with like Earth categories. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. It's like a lizard, but a cat. I'm like, not Earth categories. Then I'm like, it's a lizard, but a cat. So yeah, it is. It has scales. It has sort of like golden, slitted eyes, and I think it has this like very iridescent silvery sheen, almost like fish scales. But it is a lithe, long, very nimble animal, like a predator with sharp teeth. And I think that this is like meeting a coyote. I think it's somewhere between a coyote and like a bobcat, right? It's something that is, as a wilderness person, I'm very familiar with it. I know that it is one of the risks of operating in this, out in the wilderness by myself. And I think as soon as I enter this area and then I see it, right, I'm like, ugh, of course, because there's lots of densely packed shelves here that were the hydroponic, where the actual plants are like stacked up, right? And I know that these animals like sort of tightly packed, complex spaces, right? So this is a perfect den for one of these creatures. And I see it, and it sees me, and I'm kind of like, I know the wilderness, so I'm like, okay, I know what to do. I need to, there might be others in the area, so I need to watch my back, and I need to, I think that the sort of like standard approach for these is they won't really come after humans unless something's wrong, unless they're starving or something. And, but they're kind of territorial, not even extremely, right? Like, I think I still feel like I can explore the ship, but I very carefully sort of stand to my full height to make it clear, like, I could fight you if I wanted to, and I take steps back, and I don't make eye contact with it, right? Like, I think that I look down at the ground between us, and it's like, it has eyes on the side of its head, so it's sort of like facing like directly away from me and watching me with one eye, and I just back out of the room. And that's how I overcome the danger of that room.
This room, I think, is, again, sort of on the brim. It's bigger than the second room we went into, but still smaller than the main room. Technical and scientific with a relic. It isn't literally this, but I had the image of a rotary dial phone just on a on a pedestal in the middle of the room. It isn't that, but I want it to be something that explicitly ties us to these robot creatures historically. Technical room could be something like a lab. It could be, a repair bay. Could be a data bank. Technical and scientific. Yeah, that does lead me to think it is a lab of some kind. And something in here, the relic gets recognized by one of the experts. There's like a shout of joy. What is it? I wonder if we are a relatively like heavily augmented type of society. Like if it's very run-of-the-mill to have like a brain chip that you can look at the internet on or whatever. Or I think actually what it is like communicate with each other. It isn't like a hive mind, but I think, okay, my brain is going a little A to E as I'm trying to figure this out. So that's okay, but how do I say it out loud? I think we are human-like aliens. Maybe we have some very low-key psychic abilities. We can talk to each other silently. That is just something we can do. And almost everyone chooses to have sort of like an augment put probably in like their skull, the back of their neck or something that like amplifies that. So much of the vibe so far is nice that I don't want it to be like, I want it to very much be something you can choose. I don't think that we're all going around reading each other's minds all the time or anything. Maybe that's actually even one of the things that the augment does, is that like it gives you more control over it. If you don't have this thing, if you're really upset, you might accidentally project your thoughts or read someone's mind. And this just gives you a little more control over it in a lot of ways. So you can talk to people who are further away and you can keep your thoughts more private. It is just like a sort of like natural ability that we have that we tend to choose to lean into with technology. And the thing we find in here is the earliest prototypes of those chips that we use. There is like this shout of joy and intrigue from somebody who sort of rushes forward, then catches themselves to not touch anything, like literally like looks like they ran into a wall, but did it like just themselves, runs forward, hands up, doesn't touch anything, catches themselves, freezes, but is really excited, visibly like bouncing a little bit on the balls of their feet. And they say that like a huge area of their study is like, how did we communicate before we had this technology? Or like, how did that affect us? I think that probably as a culture, like we used to be a lot more separated. We had a tendency to be in like very small groups and live very far away from each other, and often very isolated historically. Because it's just too much. It's too overwhelming. When you have psychic powers that you can't control, it's too much to be around a lot of other people. And I think that caused heartache. You know, it was very isolating and not in a way that was like satisfying and fulfilling. And probably we had this technology. I mean, what we're learning now is we had the technology all the time. But it was probably dangerous or more dangerous to install. It's like it often just, you know, advances in technology and in medical technology. It is now so routine. You can fucking get it done at Claire's, basically. You know, you just pop into the mall when you turn 17. And you're like, well, I bet some kids have younger, but I want them to be able to choose whatever. I don't have to get into the full ethical implications of this in this very moment. It's okay. It's okay. I'm allowed. But it's so low-key. It's an outpatient procedure. If you ever needed to get fixed, there's just there's a place at the mall you can go, and they'll just be like, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. It'll take you like 45 minutes, but only because I have to like charge up a battery, you know? It's so routine. It didn't used to be. It used to be much scarier, and so it was much harder to access. And this person studies like the evolution of our society as that technology advanced. And so they are able to recognize a very primitive form of it. Maybe they're like, we have records of people talking about things that looked like this, but we've never seen them. We've seen corpses, we've seen the remains of people that looked like they probably had one of these installed, but they were so difficult to make and so precious that they were reused. Like when somebody died, it was taken out and given to somebody else, which had its own set of problems. But it meant that like we have never been able to actually see a full one, and it looks like that's what this is. Yeah, okay. So to sum that up, here's what we've learned in this room. And when I say we, I mean both like diegetically as characters and what we have learned as I'm figuring out what this story is as I go. We are human-like, but we have some type of innate psychic ability. It can be difficult to control, and so we often historically lived apart from each other and very isolated because it was just a little too overwhelming. However, advances in technology have made a little augment that you put in the back of your neck really accessible. Everyone gets one. It's chill. This makes it much easier to stop yourself from projecting your thoughts into other people's minds when you don't want to. And it makes it easier to like talk to people longer distance. Like it just sort of gives you better control over the power all around. And what we have just discovered is that the earliest known version of that technology was developed in this room. I don't think that we know for sure that this is a spaceship yet. It might just be a weird underground metal bunker. We'll have to discover that at some point. But we know that this weird metal underground bunker is here, and evidently this technology was first developed here. And that's exciting. It's a missing, it could mean that like there's huge missing pieces of that history and puzzle of like, how did it, because we don't really know like who made it, where did it come from? There's so much that's been lost in that time, and maybe this means we'll be able to find out more of it. And that, to a group of history dorks of various expertises, oh, you fucking know that's a party. Just glancing at the list of questions, I think what I have answered here is, what piece of history have you discovered? Maybe also, what connections are you making? Yeah, hell yeah. And I think like our job here, we're going around and we are doing a like cataloging right now. We cannot dig deeper into a bunch of this because there's just too much and we need to call in more experts, etc. So we're gonna have to step out of this room. Maybe we'll leave the most excited person here to study. But as a team, we're gonna have to
move on to the next room.
Go see room 4. I'm a really big fan of the first season of Limetown, and so I think you could probably hear me trying to make sure I wasn't just inventing a chip that gives you psychic powers, because that didn't go well in that show. It's a really, really good show. All right, room 4. The type is destroyed.
Labyrinthian, okay.
The modifier is powerful.
Occupied.
The item is a communicator.
Seed is the item, huh?
And the vibe is dangerous. Great.
And an unsettling vibe. Okay.
So,
I know exactly what this is going to be.
I know exactly what this is.
Great. So this is the area directly starboard. I think because it's kind of symmetrical, maybe it is another, well, what do we get for organic? Yeah, so this is another little area. You know, the ship is big, so these aren't right next to each other. It takes a little bit of walking and exploration to find these, but kind of making zigzag way down the ship on the starboard side here. This is kind of the greenhouse garden type area, and I think because there's still water trickling in from the caved in area, and the minimal power here has kind of kept some of the lights dimly going. We don't have a full hydroponic system that's being tended by people or robots or anything, but I think there are still things that have made it here, adapted to low light, cold, damp conditions, whatever's there's definitely overgrown, but kind of living in an ecology with the cave critters in the first area there. And yeah, I think we have readouts here. Well, you know what? No, I don't think there are. I think there are, but they are broken. And so it's unclear what these plants were originally because it's been some time. It is unsettling. However, I think we must have brought some agriculture or horticultural material out when we first settled millennia ago. And I think the unsettling part here is, these plants weren't cultivated by anyone after the crash or whatever. These were left to their own devices. And I imagine that means that they are entirely unlike anything that we have above ground. So let me ask some questions and see if I can learn some more about these plants. What do my senses tell me about this? It is dim. It is damp. It's probably relatively cold, but I think there's a breeze coming from somewhere, and I'm not sure if it is from the excavation, the opening we made. The other thing I hear is there is something moving when I'm not looking, and it is unsettling because I think it might be some of the plants that have some mobility, so I need to keep my eye on things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What piece of history have I discovered? I've discovered the initial seed stock or plant stock of everything that we've built here. All the non-native plants, but the familiar plants to us. This is where they came from. Kind of like brassicas turned into broccoli and cauliflower and 100 different plants. This is like the rootstock of all the familiar things. And again, this is a fantastic opportunity. Every branch of research is going to get a piece of this. Botanists and sort of archaeological biologists are going to have a field day with this. And what is dangerous here? What's dangerous here is I think that some of the plants are alive and mobile, curious, and I'm going to overcome it. Not by doing anything to them, but definitely keeping an eye on, like, not turning my back on anything that might look like it might be hungry or curious in some way.
Occupied is really interesting. Okay, so labyrinthian. So I've been in the hydroponics, which I drew on the starboard side, the starboard aft side of the ship. If I cross the starboard corridor, I will come to the main storage space. So I described this as just being a very large room, and that's all I said about it. And labyrinthian is perfect because I think that this is once you get inside, it is just it's a maze. It's all of these shelves, and I think that if it was just sort of tall shelves, right, that would be not labyrinthian. That would just be, like a bunch of narrow passages, but they'd be very straight and orderly. So I think that this layout was designed in some crazy way, some Tetris situation, to maximize how much could fit in here. And because, it had to support a number of people, like half a dozen people for 10 years. So they really tried to make the most use of space possible. So it's just fucking wild, right? Like, I think that the feeling is a little bit, this is not a place of honor, right? One of the designs for how you would build to keep people away from a place where there is nuclear waste for 10,000 years, right? Like, after they lose all knowledge of our language and any languages that descend from it. There's this concept that you build this very sort of forbidding landscape. And the ones I'm seeing as I do a Google search are sort of like this very spiky architecture. But what I'm thinking of is actually the idea that you would build these like very forbidding monoliths with very narrow passages between them, so that it's just unpleasant to walk through. It just feels ominous and weird. So anyway, that's the image I'm going for, right? It just has this sense of just like, I feel uncomfortable even being here. Like these shelves are like towering over me in every direction, and it's not fun. And it's also occupied. Oof. Right? I mean, the easy thing here is that it's occupied by another one of the same creatures as what I already found. And I think I'm going to just go with that, because I don't think that there's a person living here. Unless, nope, I've got it. It is occupied by, it's occupied by ghosts. It's occupied by holograms. I think that, what are these? They're instructional holograms to help you find what you're looking for. So I sort of like walk in, and again, this is one of the subsystems that still improbably has power, and a like hologram of a very helpful woman pops to life and starts speaking to me in the language that we were speaking 10,000 years ago. And she wants to know what it is that I want to find. And I just sort of like yelp, and she says like, "I'm sorry, I didn't understand." And I'm pretty freaked out by this. So this is a slow process. I I give her a wide distance, but eventually I retrieve my computer. I mean, I know what a hologram is, right? Because my system uses holograms. I retrieve my computer and I'm able to get it to translate back and forth between me and this digital assistant, right? And I think that, okay, so I had to go out and get cat food. And as I was walking, I was thinking like, wow, I'm introducing the idea that they intentionally left some technologies behind. Gosh, they ditched LLMs in a hurry, didn't they? And I think that this is not necessarily an LLM, whatever, but I think that this is a moment that for this character it's dangerous, it's tempting, because we have these cool holographic interfaces and cool computers, but we don't have computers that talk to us like people. And once she figures out what this is, she's like pretty, like, that seems really magical to her, right? Like, she doesn't have all the baggage that we do around what that means. She's just like, oh my gosh, it's like, it's a person. And she gets that it's not, right? I think that she does quickly figure out that it's not really a person. I think she asks it, and it is better and more helpful than an LLM would be if you asked it a question like that, right? Like, God, okay, I don't need to dive in on LLMs. But she's like, oh, okay, this would be cool to take back, like the nuclear stuff they were talking about before, or like the car engines. We don't really need that stuff. We figured out ways around it. But this is pretty cool. I would love to show this to some of my friends, and like it would just be pretty amazing. And what else? Is there anything else I want to address from my what I rolled? Seed. Yeah. Okay, let me look at my questions and think about seed. I'm gonna focus on this question: what connections are you making? Because I think that she realizes that this technology has to have been left behind, right? This ability for a computer to talk to you like a person. And that puzzles her because it seems so cool and just beneficial. Like, what could be wrong with that? So it just makes her pensive, right? And the seed that is planted here is metaphorical, right? This is sort of cluing her in that the decision that her ancestors made is stranger than she initially understood, and maybe harder for her to understand than she realized.
This isn't in the...
It is like a saucer.
Brim. I'm not continuing to explore the brim in this moment. This is a room under the first room that we went into. Another hatch in the floor opened, or they discovered another hatch in the floor. We went down into it. It's much smaller. I'm interpreting powerful as like the thing that provides power. This is an engine room. This is the room that shows us we're on a ship, most likely. We're not just this isn't just a bunker that was built down here. Or if it is a bunker, it was a bunker that was built to move. There's an engine. There's an engine down here, and the item is communicator. And I think the thing I want to take from that is that, like, this is not the only engine, and they're stored separately. And I think, like, a lot of this isn't obvious to the characters right now, but I think that what I'm learning about the story is that, like, there are a series of, like, engines and batteries and things that all had to be activated at the same time. And maybe they're, like, too reactive to be in the same room, so they had to be separate, but there is a, like, communicator built in to the walls that is, like, yeah, if you're down here, you're going to have to be talking to people, not just, like, the people on the bridge, but you're going to have to be talking to the people who are operating the other engines so that you can all, like, spin them up at the same time and coordinate. And I think probably spin them down at the same time if something goes wrong. Which, like, a lot of that is already building off of the dangerous vibe. But, like, they're super unstable. Like, that's why they're separated, and that's why this is dangerous. And it's also destroyed, right? That was the room type that I got. And so it's like I'm trying to decide if it's evidence of a crash or if it's the thing that caused the crash. Like, is this, or was there a crash at all? Maybe it's just a normal decay. I wonder if the ship was meant to hover and then lost hovering ability and crashed. I wonder if somebody was trying to escape and like didn't have enough support. Looking at the question, what is missing, broken, or damaged? I think, possibly also the question, what connections are you making? I think this hatch is very close to where the plant was growing, and maybe this engine is directly underneath it. And just a possibly like natural decay. I do think that it probably was damaged in an incident, but then also just then, time, things started to fall apart a little bit. And I think we back out of the room very quickly. We're taking a look, and then I don't know if it's literally a Geiger counter, but the equivalent of a Geiger counter, something that is measuring some sort of radiation, just starts beeping like mad, going really, really intensely. And so we back out. But this makes this develops the theory, the hypothesis, that the plant that is growing here is actually feeding off of that radiation. Maybe they used to be able to grow these plants when they were traveling more because, like, oh man, maybe they're like, I got excited. You know how it's bad that we're destroying the rainforests? For several reasons, but one of the reasons is that trees are carbon capturing, and so it escalates climate change by meaning that our rampant emissions have even less of a thing, of a buffer, of a thing to absorb them. I think that's what these plants do that for this radiation. These engines are super dangerous and reactive, and one of the things that can mitigate them is these plants absorbing that energy. I don't know if that's what the seed that they create is, or like I don't know if it's they're like storing up all the energy and putting it in the seed to like be disposed of, or if it's kind of a like pearl in an oyster situation where it just like creates like the grit of the radiation, sort of like build something, or if it's just totally unrelated. These plants just happen to like absorb it and grow really well off of it. These are all options. But what we know, what seems to be the case, is that this plant is alive because the engine underneath it is leaking very dangerous radiation. Which I think we can kind of test by being like, we come up and close the hatch, and there's a little bit of a flurry of like, we know how this radiation works. We're all fucked. Like, why didn't those sensors go off earlier? It's probably all over this room. And we double check the sensors, and we run tests, and it isn't. And then we put the sensors close to the plant, and there's a little bit of it. And then I think it's the type of thing where we put it right up next to the seed, and it starts to really go off in earnest. But it's not dispersed. It's not in the air. We have to actually like touch it to the seed. It is making it into a solid, which is so much less dangerous. Still dangerous, but so much less dangerous because it can be dealt with. It can be contained. Yeah. Do I feel like I pulled in the item, the communicator, well enough to feel like I've dealt with that? Yeah, I think that helped establish the sort of like multiple engines thing, which led into like, or sort of amplified the extra danger of them. Yeah, so I think I addressed all of my table things there, and I'm very excited about the direction this is going. Cool.
That is room 4.
So let's see. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms.
Take a couple notes. Go to room 5.
Let's go.
So I'm going to zigzag back down to the other side of the ship again. Leave whatever's here to its own devices to 5. This is one of the parts that I kind of like busted out. So maybe this is this is kind of large. The part next to this is more collapsed, but this part is definitely like broken. So
room 5.
Let me roll some dice to get a few prompts here.
The type is Technical.
Technical.
Labyrinthian.
The modifier is knowing.
Spiritual.
Spiritual.
The item is a seed.
A relic.
Great.
There are weapons here.
And the vibe is mysterious.
And mysterious.
And it is uplifting. Ooh, interesting.
Awesome.
That's great.
Okay, so she's explored the starboard side of the ship, and she comes out, and I think the room that she's going to go to that is technical and kind of spiritual and mysterious is the cockpit. So she goes forward to the bow of the ship. She walks past the stairs that are overgrown with vines. She wants to check that out later, and she goes into the cockpit. There's a window here, right? So you can actually see out, as well as a pilot seat and a co-pilot seat and a navigator station. It's a lot like the cabin, the crew cabin of a modern plane. And they have equivalent technology, right? Like they can travel back and forth easily, like between settlements, even that are. I've established that some settlements are very far apart, even though a lot of the planet isn't explored. So they have whatever they have some version of this. She recognizes what this is, and I mean the mysterious element is just that there's so much here, right? Like she is looking at these instrument panels, these controls, and they are baffling. There is so much complexity. There's so many screens. I think that the thing that freaks her out a little bit is that she gets what this must be, but there's not like a flight stick. You know, like there's not a yoke you could pull up on or pull down on, or that there's nothing that she understands as like the way that you would manipulate an object's movement through space, right? And it's because, I mean, whatever, they're using very advanced technology that is not relying on jet engines or rockets or anything like that. So they just have other ways to control it. And probably they have to sort of calculate any movement that they make way in advance. So anyway, they don't have that manual control like that. But she still knows what must have gone on here. And she just finds that, like, how did it work? How could it possibly have worked? And it's spiritual because she's an explorer, right? And I think that this is a moment where she feels a more personal commonality with them. Before, in the garden, where she had this strong sense of like, oh, these were human beings, it still wasn't personal. Now it's like, these were human beings, and actually they were like me. They were people like me who did this sort of crazy, dangerous thing, who stepped outside of what they knew. And she's kind of like, God, I would give anything to be flying through the stars in a ship like this, seated exactly here. This is where I would want to be. Yeah, that's kind of spiritual. Yeah. What is the relic? I don't think it just is this place. I want it to be something. I kind of like the idea that it's something she can bring with her, because she does feel this very personal thrill at this place. I think I'm going to be corny. There are, what is it? There's a pair of pilot wings, and they're gold, so they haven't rusted, they haven't tarnished, and this is part of somebody's flight uniform, right? It's something that they wore. I think that what happened here, and she has no way of knowing this, is I think that we'll find out more. But there was disagreement about what they did, and that might be why these weapons are around, right? Maybe there was actually fighting. There was disagreement about leaving the technology behind that they left behind, and I think somebody tore off their wings here. They tore off part of their uniform in a moment of anger, in a moment of protest, and she doesn't know this, of course. But she finds these gold wings. I mean, they're grimy, you know, it's not like it's this like brilliant shining piece of gold, but they're intact. And I think she's like, what is this? She doesn't know about birds. There's no birds. She's like, it kind of looks like a weird insect. Oh, I love that. I love that I established there were no birds. I think that she feels on some level, even though she doesn't know about birds, she's like, This has to do with flight, right? I think this has to do with flying. This was a place where people flew, and she takes it. She pockets it. She sort of like wipes it and is like, whoa, it's like shiny. They must have gold here. Yeah, gold's like just like an element. But I think they have a different relationship to gold, right? Like it's not something that they it's more something that is valuable because it's practical. Like gold is good for certain things, you know, like in terms of electronics or manufacturing or whatever. So they still value it, but it just didn't get cemented as like, this is one of the precious things that we all seek for. So she's just kind of like, oh, it's very pretty. Maybe it's like gold or like iridium or one of those weird metals that I vaguely know doesn't tarnish. That's cool. And she takes it.
So I think, since I said this is broken off, I imagine there are, we didn't all sleep on the ship, right? I like the idea of a generation ship or something where the sleeping is kind of in shifts. So, 90% of the people are down and 10% of the people are up kind of doing maintenance and kind of being people for a little while. So they don't, sleeping too long is not good for you. So I think these are the staterooms or dormitories kind of. And, because spaceships can be, they don't need to be rocket shaped, right when they're in space. I think this was kind of like a series of kind of like tubes, almost like a lattice. So there was kind of the illusion of privacy. So it's kind of like a privacy, kind of like an apartment building, only without the building around it, just kind of like the hallways and rooms, pods or whatever they are. But since this is all broken up, these were all kind of broken and tangled into each other. And so it is kind of maze-like picking our way through these hallways that are, even if we did know what they looked like when they were put together, they are not like that now. Spiritual. How is it spiritual? Spiritual weapons and uplifting. Did I narrate myself into a corner here? Let's ask some questions first and see if I can get myself out of this. What connections am I making? Yeah, so I think if this is living quarters, we have a variety of kinds of people. And yeah, I think maybe that's where that comes from. We brought culture with us. And so I don't imagine we were a monolithic people, a society when we came here. And so as we go through the hallways and start looking through the different rooms, we see a variety of different religious or spiritual practices. Maybe the seed society, when we left, maybe that was a very strong part. Maybe that's why we reach out for the stars. Even though it wasn't homogenous, there were a bunch of different spiritual or religious beliefs, lifestyles in them. And so I think we're seeing a lot of different ones represented there. Again, that may have been lost, certainly lost after 10,000 years. And so maybe that is uplifting, seeing where, again, the roots of our current society, our philosophies and sort of societal systems came from. The weapon, maybe that's why this part is so messed up. Yeah, being a colony ship or a sleeper ship or a generation ship, this wasn't this isn't a starfighter. This isn't a battle cruiser or anything. I don't think there would be any weapons on the ship, to fight other ships. I don't feel like it's that kind of mission. It feels like it's a straight shot to where we're going. But, there would have to be some sort of, oh, dang, yeah. Maybe if it is a terraforming ship, maybe it's got a little Genesis action on there, and it's not like an offensive weapon or something. Maybe it's some of the terraforming equipment that, is dropping on the planet to make a dramatic entrance. It drops some process or some machines that fix the atmosphere, or fix it, change the atmosphere to more liking, or do some sort of biological chemical process there. And maybe, storing it near the hab units isn't the best idea, but you got to do what you got to do, I guess, on a spaceship. And maybe that's why this is all messed up. Maybe some sort of terraforming system went awry on landing with dramatic effects here. Yeah, and maybe that's another connection I'm making here, is that maybe, this ship didn't just land peacefully and go about its business. Maybe there was a problem, and that's why everyone didn't make it off. What do my senses tell me? I feel like, there's the sense of getting lost in it, even though we're probably methodical in exploring, cataloging, making sure we have everything, mapped out and cataloged. I think there is a desire to sort of wander a bit and get lost. And I think, there's a kind of pleasant feeling of just kind of like letting yourself go here and just sort of stumbling through all these different people's old lives. And again, what other questions do I have here? I feel like if these are quarters, there would be a lot of personal effects. And again, I think it's the same kind of questions with the cryo tubes, like these are people that probably did make it off. Probably most of us did. And I'm kind of wondering, like, are there diaries or logs or journals or artworks or personal effects that were left behind? Like, what other things can we learn by examining what was left behind? Even though the people here left, maybe they didn't take everything with them. So I think the other questions are, what can I find here? What can I find that would take some time to uncover? But yeah, wandering along.
Having knowing and mysterious is fascinating. And it probably is another lab. The seed is in here. It is a lab. It's a perfect mirror of the third room, the chip lab. And the way that I want to make knowing and mysterious work together is that there are a bunch of formulas and like notes from experiments, very detailed, that are around. And I think that we can't understand all of them. Language evolves. 10,000 years is a crazy timeline, as I keep saying. But there's some basic stuff, Our numbers are the same as they have been. There are words that are similar, even if language has evolved quite a bit. So we can see all of these formulas and these notes for experiments, but we don't know what the point of them was. I think they're incomplete, and the thing I'm not sure of, like the notes are incomplete. The thing I'm not sure of is whether that's on purpose or circumstantial. Like, did somebody remove the note that was like, here's what the experiment I'm doing is for, and here's my conclusion? Or is it just a notebook where the person was writing notes to themselves and didn't feel the need to explain for future historians, here's what the experiments were? Because they're like, I'm going to use these to publish a paper, and then you'll just reference the paper. I'm leaning towards the idea that it's circumstance. It's just the notes to self that are not meant to be complete, but leaving open the question of like, well, but we can't find notes on the experiment. We can't find that information written down. It must have been written down somewhere if they were writing this stuff down, most likely. We can't find it. Was it removed on purpose? That stuff we're not sure of. Whatever it was, whatever the experiments were that they were running on one of these seeds. I think we know that from diagrams. They've drawn the seed and they've drawn maybe dissections of it. There's maybe a dried, preserved seed in a still sealed jar. Someone was looking into these. I was thinking of starting to lean towards the idea that these robots run off of a product of these seed, that this is the oil that is their lifeblood, essentially, is like a processed version of these seeds. I think I do like that idea. I'm trying to decide if we learn that here or if we don't know what these experiments are. Okay, yeah. So we see some diagrams that are like the robots interacting with the seeds, that make it clear, like, yes, they feed on these. They feed on the seeds. This is what they run on. And I wonder if part of the mystery here is not so much even what are the experiments. There's what are the experiments, but I think it's also the idea that there was a very specific mystery here, beyond the mystery of just science, of having a hypothesis and proving or disproving it. This, I think, is our first evidence of, until this point, like, we've only seen stuff that the robots were probably doing. Like, they could have been developing those chips, right? And I think that they did. But I think what this shows us is that we were here too. Humans, or our equivalent of humans, were traveling with these robots. And moreover, like, it begins to lend evidence to the idea that those humans didn't really know what the robots' deals were entirely either. The humans didn't create the robots. The robots don't seem to have created the humans, which I think does torpedo a little bit of our conspiracy theorist party member, who I think is doing a little bit of a humans were created by aliens as pets, and then we were just let loose. We escaped the zoo, and that's who we are. That's what humans are. That doesn't seem to be the case here. It seems like humans, which I'm going to keep saying humans, even if humans with psychic abilities, probably not strictly humans, just easiest to say. Our ancestor humans and these robots were allies. Neither of them was responsible for the other strictly, neither created the other. And our ancestors were kind of trying to figure out their deal as well. I like the idea that it's mutual. I don't think that we find evidence of that here, but that's probably what I'm angling towards, is that both the humans and the robots were like, I'll figure you out, because I don't really get it. Yeah. So in this lab, they were doing experiments on these seeds to try and figure out, I think, we don't exactly know because the notes are incomplete, but it seems like they were trying to be like, how do you run off of this? Did you evolve together? Did you create this? Did someone create you? Where did you come from? What's the deal? Maybe if we figure out how the food source works, we'll know more about you, I think is the experiment vibe. And we have no idea if they got anywhere with that, because the notes are incomplete. Yeah. All right. I think that's good. Let's go to room 6. This has been Folio, an actual play podcast about solo and epistolary TTRPGs. You can find transcripts, game statistics, and more at foliopod.site. You can help pay for hosting costs, game purchases, and maybe eventually a bit of my production labor at patreon.com/foliopod or ko-fi.com/foliopod. You can find Dora on Bluesky at Queen Regnant. She has games at dcity.itch.io and games she makes with her wife at galpalgames.itch.io. Make sure you go follow Hocus Pocus Hyperfocus on Kickstarter so you don't miss when it launches on October 6th. You can find Marc at majcher.com. You can find their games at majcher.itch.io. You can find Satah, that's me, on Bluesky at posatachips.gaygothvibes.online and my work generally at gaygothvibes.online. Next week, Dora and Marc and I will continue our games of Farsickness Landing by Lonely Cryptid Media. Everything I mentioned here is linked in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening, and take care out there.